I forget. You've got Voldemort and that guy, whoever they were supposed to kill. Sauron! Alright. Alright, I have my coffee. I have my snacks, and hopefully it doesn't spill this time. Because I am not in the mood of mopping things up. Alright. So, wait, what do we have here? What's the first one? Gotrek and Felix, Warhammer's greatest heroes and biggest nobodies. So, check this out. I think we're almost done with our Old World series. It's gonna come out on Tuesday at 3 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. Because right now, I honestly want to study Warhammer Fantasy in chronological order. And if I remember it correctly, it's the old world, it's the general, and then it's the general Warhammer Fantasy setting. After that, it's the end times, and then afterwards, it's the Age of Sigmar. And I think we're already done with our last stint in Warhammer Fantasy. Excuse me. So, people have been begging for me to check out Gotrek and Felix. So yeah, this is going to be the beginning of our general Warhammer Fantasy series. And I honestly have no idea who they are. Since my feeling about the whole fantasy setting is that I already play Sith. So it's already a fantasy setting. So if I'm gonna start off with Warhammer, which is how the whole thing began, I'm gonna start with regular Warhammer, with Big Hammer, or if not, I'm gonna start over with Kill Team. Excuse me. Sorry, coffee's really doing a number on me. But anyways, why don't we check this two out? Sounds like a buddy cop comedy, but before we do, please like, share, subscribe, do the whole notification button thing to help me out with the algo. And here we go. It's wait, I think it's PancreasNoWork again, I think.
You know, usually in a story where the hero or heroes are down on their luck, it usually means something like in The Empire Strikes Back. The good guys have been hurt and the bad guys are winning for sure, but there's a clear message of hope for the future in some way. Whether it be a prophecy about the good guys unfolding, new allies being found, or any other number of things, something is going to go well for them in the near future. Things aren't looking good for the heroes, but things are definitely going to get better. With the heroes being down on...
Alright, I think what he's trying to say is that there has always been a formula as to how these stories are presented. Like, for example, you've got Harry Potter, you've got Star Wars, and then LOTR. First, number one, how do you present it? Number one, you have the chosen one, preferably an orphan. Number two, it needs some sidekicks, preferably two funny bumbling idiots. Number three, he finds out that he is special. Whether it be that he's a wizard, whether he is in tune with the Force, or whether he is the one destined to carry the ring into Mordor. And then number four, he joins the super secret organization. Like, you have the Jedi Order, you have the Wizarding Order. In fact, you have wait, what was the name of the old crowd? The Order of the Phoenix. And then you have the Fellowship Ordering. And then next, it's their job to basically kill the big bad evil guy. You've got Senator Palpatine, you've got what was the name of the big bad guy in Lord of the Rings again? I forgot. How come I forget. You've got Voldemort and that guy, whoever they were supposed to kill. Sauron! Alright. So there's always that particular formula as to how stories are presented. And right now, it seems, based on what I know, based on all of the books I have read, we have a buddy cop comedy. So let's see if we're correct in that presumption.
their luck usually doesn't mean is them being forced to take on a job as bouncers in a shitty tavern in the poorest quarter of an industrializing city in between saving the world. But Gotrek and Felix aren't most heroes, and yet despite all that, I think they're the most enjoyable Warhammer characters to read about. I couldn't care less about the Emperor of Mankind, maybe or maybe not, considering his sons to be nothing more than tools, but you can be damn sure I want to read about Gotrek and Felix murdering their 50th monster that week before Gotrek drinks himself to a coma and Felix finds the 50th woman that week to fall in love with. Anyways, we'll get to all that. So what's this video going to be about? Well, Gotrek and Felix, of course. But instead of going through their entire series, because that would take about 10 hours, I'm going to talk...
You know what? Just for the hell of it, I think I'm gonna, get myself these ones. Hopefully they have, like, an ebook adaptation. Because one of the best things about modern technology is that, well, you could have, like, thousands of authors in your fingertips without actually being weighed down by paper. Because that's what I've noticed when we started out in the house, is that, well, we used to sell smut. But anyways, I mean, they just, love the way I say things, or sometimes I read to my audience about what's in these books. And a lot of girls are into smut. But anyways, the point of it is that most of the modern audience or modern collectors, they honestly want a hard copy, or they honestly want physical copies that they want to that they want to display, or they want on their shelves, just to show just to show it off to everyone. So yeah, I'm not in with that, but what I do know is that a lot of people, including myself, have complained that most Warhammer 40k. I mean, I've here personally speaking, I've only read like Warhammer 40k related literature. I've only listened to Warhammer 40k related literature. I've never read or listened to any Warhammer fantasy Warhammer stuff. And the thing is, the 40k selection is, well, from Dan Abnett to whoever is the next one supposed to write this whole thing. It's a bit mid, okay? It's a bit mid. Why do I say it's a bit mid? Because I have no desire to actually go back to it. Alright? It started with Horus Rising, and then next I was in the middle of False Gods, and I just stopped with no desire to come back. Because here's the thing, right? As a person that grew up with books, one of the barometers when I consider, this is to be a good writing, I find this thing to be enjoyable. Of course, definitely subjective, is that you simply can't put the book down. But when reading about 40k, I can. I can put the book down. And you know what? I can't even forget about it. Like, I can live the rest of my life without actually finding out what happened to False Gods. Honestly, no desire. So, hopefully, since PancreasNoWork is hyping up Gotrek and Felix, hopefully, there's better writing in this one by Nathan Long. It says right there. At least, better than Dan Abnett. I can't even remember the author of the next book. But anyways, let's keep on going.
More about who they are and what you could expect out of them. Now, of course, there'll be spoilers, I'll just be honest with you, but I'll try and avoid anything major. For instance, I'm not going to bring up shit about any major motivations some characters might have, unless it's like Felix, where you find out their motivation about 5 seconds into the book. For example, why is Gotrek a Slayer? Well, read the goddamn series and you'll find out. But I'm still going to talk about things that happen in the series. I mean, it's unavoidable. And I'll try to avoid anything about major character deaths, but, well, if nothing else, go and see what Gotrek's series is called in Age of Sigmar. You see what's missing? Yeah, I know. Yeah, it hurts, I know. And as one final note, I read 90% of
okay, so in the Age of Sigmar, Gotrek is still alive, but Felix is no longer alive? I mean, do they have the same... dwarves have elf-like lifespan? Or is this whole thing happening during the Age of Sigmar? Comments, please. Because we just, skipped over the old world. And now we're just, in the general Warhammer fantasy setting, I think we're gonna go with Karl Franz, something about Karl Franz next, or the whoever the factions are in the general Warhammer fantasy setting. I assume it's gonna be a lot of the same, but who knows? We might find something good.
These books back to back in the span of about 4 months because I bought them in those omnibuses where you get 3 main books and a few short stories. So if I say something happened in X story when it really happened in Y story, please forgive me, and I'll just kind of exist in this giant mush labeled Gotrek, Felix, and Snorri in my brain, but we'll get to him later as well. Anyways, let's start with the dwarf, the myth, the legend himself, Gotrek Garnison. Might as well start with his job. Gotrek.
Yeah, again please, do they have is this happening in the Age of Sigmar age, or do dwarves have elf lifespan or something? I don't know. Comments again.
Is a slayer. A slayer in Warhammer Fantasy is a dwarf who done goofed real bad and now has to die in glorious battle to redeem himself. Sometimes a dwarf takes the slayer oath for something truly dishonorable, like neglecting your military duties leading to the downfall of a whole lot of dwarfs. Other times it's because Olaf Aelbeard lost.
So a repentant, a penitent. Repentant. A penitent, whoever, what, the sisters penitentiary, whatever. Those units in Warhammer 40k who's there to repent for their sins. So he's like some sort of a penitent because he messed something up for his people. Is that it? Is that what he is?
A month's income of gold coins gambling, and the only option left to him is clearly suicide by monster. To avoid spoilers, I'm not going to tell you why Gotrek took the Slayer oath, but either way, he done goofed and is now a Slayer. There's a big problem here, though. Gotrek's kind of...
So he's a penitent, alright.
The worst Slayer alive, because he sucks at dying. Every time he gets in a fight with something, it gets brutally murdered. Humans, Dark Elves, Beastmen, Greater...
Gotrek's riposte cost 11 wounds to Archaeon with the armor of Morkar bouncing off 2 back to the Slayer. His second side of attack was even more effective, causing another 16 unsaved wounds, including 1 to himself, and providing the Ever-Chosen to be more like the Never-Chosen. That's a lot of dice.
Demons, doesn't matter in the least. If you try to fight Gotrek one-on-one, you're gonna die a messy death. Hell, outnumbering him just means more of you are gonna die. In the last Gotrek and Felix book, just called Slayer, Felix refers to Gotrek taking on a Chaos Lord and his warband as nature taking its course. Gotrek naturally hates this. He's not actively suicidal, at least no more than anyone else who's actively...
I remember this Japanese film, where the ending was the princess basically took out her own eyes. There was this some sort of one of the bodyguards of the prince, and he was sort of killed, but he got back up and then killed the guy who tried to kill him, and he said, "Are you immortal?" "No, I just suck at dying," or something to that effect.
Seeking out death in combat, but the series takes place over the course of roughly 20 years, and Gotrek was a Slayer for longer than that. That's several decades of just not being able to die.
Alright, so dwarves, very long lifespan, and he has been a penitent even before the franchise began, which is, the story that takes place in a span of over 20 years. Okay, got it.
Despite all aspects of your culture and religion saying, "Time to die now, champ." This is both because of a magical X keeping him alive and giving him strength, which every time someone observes it, they say it courses with divine energy, so you can't say I'm spoiling that because it's brought up every 5 goddamn minutes, and because either way, he's just that much of a stubborn bastard. It drives him to take on more and more dangerous quests, which is oftentimes the driving force behind the plot of the Gotrek and Felix books. But despite his despair at being alive, he's got a good heart deep down, so he always goes on another adventure to help and maybe finally get himself killed. Though keep in mind, when I say Gotrek's a good person deep down, I mean deep down. Usually when a character is called
Alright, so he's an outward asshole. You literally have to dig deep in order to find, that deep down inside everyone's a good person. So you literally have to look with Gotrek.
Jerk with a heart of gold or something like that. They're like a Marvel movie character where they're basically a saint, but they say sarcastic things every now and then. If Felix isn't holding him back, Gotrek will happily kill a man just for spilling his beer, and on one occasion almost murdered a ship full of high elves because one of them refused to step aside when Gotrek had to use the bathroom. He does have a soft spot for kids though, and usually won't abandon a horde of refugees to their fate at least. So yeah, very deep down he's a good person. Like Mines of Moria deep, but, you know, it's still there. Until the AOS books, we rarely get the full extent of Gotrek's thoughts, and I haven't gotten to reading those yet because I'm still reading the last of the fantasy series at a rate of 1 page per month because I don't want to run out of Gotrek and Felix, but I digress. Much of the time, Gotrek appears to be nothing more.
It's quite ominous. Like, apparently he's, reading, like, did he say, like, 1 page per month or something? Because, like I said, my barometer, if you're, enjoying yourself with a book, is that you simply can't put it down. Like, you can't wait to get to the next page until, until you find the conclusion, or until you finally discover the conclusion. So, if he's not that motivated to finish off the franchise, maybe it's not that good, because wait, how do I explain this? It's like there was this girl once I was trying to explain to her, like, the story of Warhammer 40k. And he said, and of course she just said, that's just Dooner, right? And you know what, if you think about it, the problem with 40k is that the game sort of went out first before the lore, and the whole thing is sort of just a derivative of almost, everything else. I mean, for Christ's sake, for Emperor's sake, you have a dude named Sly Marbo with a big ass knife. Anyways, let's keep on going. I'm not here to crap on the books, okay? I'm not here to crap on the authors. It's just that I didn't have a very good time reading my first one. I simply, enjoy the lore more on audiobook basis when I'm on my way to work. And I don't even know if, and at this point, I can't even tell if I'm listening to a legit audiobook or some sort of an AI slop. Honestly, I honestly couldn't tell, because I simply just run the whole thing on the background, and I have it on autoplay, and it just keeps on running. And sometimes I can't even tell. Oh, did the first story end? Was the story I'm listening to, did it already end? Am I already listening to a new story? I don't know, but anyways, let's keep on going.
Than a brutal killing machine who enjoys battle for its own sake as much as it offers a chance of redemption. When the books get combat heavy, it's almost like he stops being a character in his own right and more like a force of nature. And indeed, there will be times in the series where Felix has to plan around Gotrek's bloodlust as the main obstacle in his path. He's not an idiot though, don't get me wrong. In fact, there's a very good scene where he uses a trap and ambushes to take down a whole lot of enemies in one of the short stories. And when another Slayer questions why he doesn't just jump in their head first, he says that Grimnir expects them to die doing their very best, so why wouldn't he use his head every now and then? Even with all of that though, because the fact we see the series through Felix's eyes, we see just how...
So, in other words, he just can't let up. Because there's a big distinction of, dying in battle versus suicide. No, we can't say that word. It's a big no-no between unaliving yourself. Alright.
Confusing an alien Gotrek can be to a human. In fact, the Gotrek and Felix novels in general are really great at hammering home that in Warhammer, the dwarves truly do have a culture that's almost alien to humanity. Gotrek usually being the prime example of this, but there are plenty of other dwarfs that feature in the series.
Alright, so it's from Felix's point of view. Got it.
They're not just shorter and greedier people that eat rocks for nourishment. Things they consider to be normal are absolutely insane to humans and vice versa. Due to that, much of the time you might think, wow, Gotrek sure is a shitbag, why is he doing that? And you know what? He is a shitbag, because every now and then you'll get...
It's cultural? Is that what he's trying to say? He's a shitbag because it's in his culture? Is that what he's saying?
Even other dwarves telling them he needs to cool it with the attitude. But every now and then, he'll do something that makes you realize that he still has things he wants in life other than death by big scary thing. That he does in fact care about a very, very small selection of people in the world. Chief among that number being, of course, his co-star Felix Jaeger, or Harry Jaeger as you'll often hear him referred to as. Especially if you play Total War where he screams his name out every time you click on him. Felix is the son of a burgeoning Empire merchantman who runs a very successful business doing something. I'm pretty sure in the end times they were shipping lumber around. Realistically, though, I'm pretty sure his father would sell orphan slaves if he thought it would turn a profit. Either way, Felix and his brother were supposed to take over the family business so the Jaeger family could finally become the nobles they deserved to be. Then Felix decided that he wanted to be a poet, which pissed his family off, went to...
Okay, so he's a Nepo baby who'd rather be a YouTuber. Okay, got it!
college to do just that and accidentally killed someone in a duel over whether or not violent protest was an acceptable form of protest. What a suddenly relevant backstory, I gotta say. As I'm writing this, I'm realizing that the comment section is gonna look like a goddamn 4chan thread.
It probably will.
Anyways, to move on as quickly as I can, he was expelled for, murdering someone, accident or not, and then was a key figure in something called the window tax riots. A very Revolutionary War-y kind of backstory. I like it. During these riots, Felix was almost run down by 6 of the Reichsguard, Karl Franz's finest, whereupon Gotrek saved him by murdering 6 of the Reichsguard, Karl Franz's finest.
If Karl Franz is still alive, or if Karl Franz's name is still being thrown around, so we're in the general Warhammer fantasy setting. Am I right? Anyways, comments please.
Well, fine, that's a running theme whenever Felix is really in danger. Because like I said earlier, anything that gets close to Gotrek dies a horrible, horrible death. They both got blackout drunk, Felix to drown out the trauma, and Gotrek because why not? Felix swore an oath to be Gotrek's rememberer and record his death for posterity because Gotrek has a very subtle but noticeable ego. And the moment he woke up with his hangover, he realized that dwarfs take their oaths very seriously and he was now Gotrek's whipping bitch. It was actually pretty funny early on because at first he thought about casually telling Gotrek he wasn't going to stick with him for all this. Then some tragic things happened to Felix and some other.
Oh my god, they're in the Warhammer 2 thingy. Total War. I can't believe I just referred to Total War as Warhammer thingy. Oh my god. I've never actually played. I played everything else from the first Shogun to Medieval to Empire, but I've never played the Warhammer franchise. I even played the now defunct Three Kingdoms. I should really check it out one of these days.
And he also saw how Gotrek was a living tornado of knife crime and thought better of it. Now, since Felix is the one whose point of view we most often get, and Gotrek is his much more competent companion, it might be easy to say that Gotrek is the Jurgen to Felix's Caiaphas Cain, which I guess isn't the worst way to get a 40k fan to read these novels, but I don't think it's entirely correct either. Their characters are very different, and to be honest, the only things that they really have in common are that there's 2 of them, and one of them is a little bit more competent in a fight than the other. Unlike Cain, Felix ultimately has no real
the other dude wanted to be a musician, so yeah.
Reason to keep being heroic. In fact, there's a few times where he has a chance to get away from Gotrek and leave his oath behind, and he chooses not to for one reason or the other. Sure, each of them sometimes get in a situation where fighting now is the best chance to not die later, but in Felix's case, there's just as many times where he chooses to fight of his own volition. Also, unlike Cain, Felix doesn't really have a reputation to worry about. There's no case where he'll lose the respect of those under him if he doesn't actively fight. Oftentimes, he chooses to fight alongside Gotrek for no other reason than he thinks it's the right thing to do, and on occasions, there's a few times where he's just as ready to kill as Gotrek is. He's also not a coward. At first reading the series you might think I'm crazy for saying that, but hear me out. Initially, Felix is just some college kid in over
well, he wants to be the Warhammer equivalent of a YouTuber, so I guess it's very brave of him.
For his head. He learned fencing at school, but that's all he has for combat experience. So even fighting against a single goblin at first is a worrying thing because it's real life or death combat. He's not instantly a video game protagonist. He has to learn his skills and adapt, which makes the books honestly so much better.
He's a regular human and going up a goblin, so if that anime Goblin Slayer is any indication as to how messy it is or how hard it is to actually kill a goblin without, being a specialist like that dude from that anime. Yeah, for a regular human or for a regular wannabe YouTuber or YouTuber equivalent of the Warhammer universe, It's definitely going to be hard
to read. You can see him transition from someone who barely knows what he's doing to being Zoro from One Piece. Feels very relatable. You know what, Felix? I too would be shitting my pants profusely at this moment, only in my case, it would probably be literal. The other reason he sometimes comes across as weak is that Gotrek is incredibly overpowered and the enemies he fights are a few leagues beyond anyone who isn't Gotrek. Have you ever played a D&D campaign where one person was incredibly overpowered, so the DM had to throw increasingly strong enemies at the party to create a meaningful sense of threat, but that also meant that everyone who wasn't the overpowered asshole was just getting their shit rocked? That's what the daily life of Felix.
Alright, got it. So, we have a Geralt of Rivia and the Jaskier situation here. Only this time, Jaskier, is actually interested in helping out Geralt of Rivia during combat.
Jaeger is like. Tangent incoming, but I would also like to give you a piece of knowledge about that kind of player. If they bring up how their character isn't really that overpowered before anyone even says anything remotely about that topic, they're an asshole. Because they're thinking about how people are going to say they're overpowered, which means they're very aware of the fact they're overpowered and going to ruin it for other people. And if you found yourself doing that exact thing, I just...
Yeah, looking at the D&D min-maxers right there. Looking at you guys, you ruin it for everyone. Play Warhammer or something, because you sort of ruin everything, or you're sort of ruining the fun. Min-maxing or equipment sniping every tier 1 quests out there. Because I don't know, go play a tabletop game with a tournament or something. Go play tabletop warfare instead of min-maxing at D&D. I mean, holy crap, people. Like, you're trying to be competitive at... Sorry, just went off in a whole tangent there about D&D min-maxers.
Like to say, fuck you. You're the reason everyone else is looking at their phone during a party fight. I know some of you are listening to me right now who've done that. You know who you are. At least one of the friends I've played with who's certainly listening to this at some point admits he makes overpowered builds, which at least he admits it. When you admit something like that, it takes away 90% of the anger. Unlike our other friend who makes overpowered builds of OP classes he found on the homebrew D&D website and then claims it 3 4d10 dice plus 8...
So it's not just a me problem, alright?
Worth of damage attacks a turn with a 12 plus to hit modifier isn't broken because he has a charisma stat of 9 to balance out all.
It's like, what happens if you win D&D? You're there to have fun. You're there for the shenanigans. You're not there because what happens? Honestly, you get to level 20 and then what? You kill the character. I'm so sorry. I'm still angry about, well, some of the people in my local league. But anyways, let's keep on going. No! Misclick there.
While the other ones being 17 or higher. But I'm wildly digressing by this point, so let's get back to the Angry Dwarf and Warhammer Fantasy's most unlucky man. Back to comparing him to Cain, Felix is also much more honest. Caiaphas Cain plays down...
Since I'm not that familiar, we've only done like a single video between these two. Or, you know, between Caiaphas Cain and that old Bale. I keep comparing him or juxtaposing them to Yaskier and, well, Geralt of Rivia.
On his achievements, both because he thinks he's just a coward and because he knows that's what the sort of character he pretends to be would do. Felix, meanwhile, actually is that sort of modest hero. He genuinely doesn't think he's doing all that much special and even says the classic, "I'm just doing what anyone would do in my position" line. One time...
Because why would you? You have an OP god right beside you. You have Thor! Literally, that's Thor. Fighting right beside you, and I think he's fighting Jormungand, the serpent that's supposed to eat the world. Am I right? I mean, do I remember my Norse mythology? That's Jormungand, right? That's Jormungandr, the serpent that's going to eat the world or something. Comments, please.
He briefly wields a hammer that, due to magic, only a dwarfish hero should be able to wield, and he tosses it like Thor at a bloodthirster and cold clocks him with it. It's what allows Gotrek to kill that bloodthirster, because otherwise the demon was going to kill him and end the book series about a dozen early. And at the end of the book, all he learned from the experience was that his hand hurts from holding the lightning hammer, and for some reason the dwarfs are all looking at him like some sort of mythical figure, which just makes him vaguely uncomfortable. And every now and then we get a point of view of someone facing them, and usually goes something along the lines of, "Holy crap, this dwarf is a monster, screw that, I'm gonna go fight this scrawny blonde next to him, and oh hey, what's this sword poking out of my chest doing there?" It's like Gotrek is Goku and Felix is Krillin. Everyone always forgets that Krillin could blow up a planet too if he felt like it when standing next to Goku, but imagine trying to mug Krillin on this.
Yeah, so I think what our YouTuber here is trying to say is that Felix sort of underestimates himself, that he sees himself more of a musician, not exactly as that, you know, much of a fighter, because I guess he's constantly in terms of battle, in terms of combat, he's constantly comparing himself to Gotrek, which just simply isn't possible. So anyways, the way he compares himself is that, you know, in his own way, he's also OP, because it's like, if ever, like, when you practice martial arts, right? And all you've ever done is spar and train with black belts, right? So imagine you're a white belt and you make it up to, let's go with Taekwondo. We'd go to yellow, blue, red, whatever belt is it. Let's say you reach blue belt. And the thing is, you have been training with black belts your entire career. And the thing is, you're almost always going to lose. So you sort of, start thinking, or you sort of, start looking at yourself that, yeah, maybe I'm just, not really good at this because I keep getting my ass kicked during sparring. And then at some point, you actually, get to compete with another blue belt. And however, the distinction is that your opponent, your opposing blue belt, just happens to train with their fellow blue belt and has yet to actually train with actual black belt. So imagine that. Imagine a blue belt that has been training with black belts his entire life. It's always been losing. Whereas compared to a blue belt that had actual batchmates, and that rose up among, and then just got promoted along with them. Of course, the former is going to be OP compared to the latter. So I'm guessing that's Felix for us.
Street. Say goodbye to your kneecaps, Chucklehead. And honestly, Gotrek and Felix complement each other as characters a lot more than Caiaphas and Jurgen do. Jurgen, as badass as he is, don't get me wrong, is almost just a plot device. Cain will be in trouble from Tyranids, but thankfully because Jurgen is both a blank and the man with the foulest body odor in the galaxy, the hive mind was disrupted long enough for Cain to pull it a win. He enables Cain to do his thing, and that's kind of it. Meanwhile, Gotrek and Felix both do things on their own. There's times they're separated from one another and it actually feels like both of them are missing something vital, rather than, oh, Felix doesn't have Gotrek around, how will he handle not having his get-out-of-jail-free card? Despite this, they're each completely valid characters in their own rights who could do well with their own series, and indeed Gotrek now has. Though of course they still work best when they're together. Together they wander the old world looking for things to kill Gotrek, and also the rest of the world because they've ended up pretty much everywhere.
So that's their thing? They're literally looking for a way to end Gotrek's life. Huh, interesting.
They fought alongside and against Tomb Kings, they fought plenty of orcs, they fought ogres in the Mountains of Morn. Hell, they helped fight a revolution in Araby, which I'm pretty sure accounts for like 80% of all Araby lore. Wherever they go, you can be assured of 3 things. Gotrek is going to fail to die, and it said kill whatever he hoped would do him in. Felix is going to fall in love with a woman to some extent, and whatever amount of money the two make is going to disappear by the next book. Turns out it's a good thing Felix never joined the family business, because he would have—
So, it's like the Trailer Park Boys, that at some point they almost always end up in prison at the end of every season, and the new season begins with them getting out of prison. Right, understood. What's the name of that author? I forgot. You know what? Let's keep on going.
Killed it before anything managed to get to Gotrek. At one point, they were involved with one of Nagash's magical artifacts, which scared the ever-loving shit out of the wizard investigating it when he realized just what he was holding. They fought Kemler and Krell, they fought a dragon ogre. Really, if there's more than one of something in the Warhammer world, Gotrek and Felix have almost certainly fought and killed one of them. They even had an adventure with Teclis once. Yes, that Teclis. And he was afraid of Gotrek. For reference, Teclis can nuke entire armies at once if he's so inclined, and this angry midget scared him. The only reason Gotrek didn't brain him was because Felix needed assistance only Teclis could provide at the time. Imagine how the end times would have turned out if that happened. Probably for the better, honestly. It's also really funny how in the epilogue of the book, Teclis wakes up alone and finds out that Gotrek left him and drags Felix along with him. And he wakes up alone in a ruin that's surrounded by orcs and chaos followers and is just like, thanks guys, really appreciate that one. Funnily enough though, despite the fact they keep wandering into situations that would make them heroes in any other story, for one reason or other, they never go beyond the realm of first level D&D characters in terms of their living conditions and status. One reason
So yeah, we're looking at the Warhammer version of the Trailer Park Boys. It's like they, at the end of the season, they earn a lot of money, but it doesn't matter anyway because they're gonna end up in prison, and the next season's going to begin with them being released from prison. Okay.
That they're still technically wanted criminals in the Empire. I mean, Felix started a massive tax riot and Gotrek murdered 6 of the Emperor's personal guard. They're not exactly welcome back in Altdorf, and until the end times, Felix never really shakes the fear that someone's going to recognize them. So if only for that reason, they often lay low when they're in the Empire. Another reason is that Gotrek, being a slayer, doesn't really give a Skaven's ass about accumulating wealth and building a life for himself. He's trying to end his own after all, so when all is said and done, he sits down for a single heroic feast to enjoy some food and ale, and then says, alright manling, time to wander around the Empire some more and hope we trip over another beastman herd. The inciting instance of all this stuff are pretty different enough that they're not just copy and paste between books, but there's two common themes. One is that someone wants them to do something, Gotrek says no, and Felix says that surely wherever they'd be going would have a mighty doom waiting for him, so they end up going. The other is that someone promises Gotrek a mighty doom if they do something, and Felix gets roped into it because of his oath. And then they go have some crazy adventures, usually meeting some genuinely interesting side characters who... they're side characters in a Warhammer novel. Let's just say they have a limited shelf life. Despite the series being called
in other
Gotrek
words, they
and
will
Felix,
die.
Felix is certainly more the main character than Gotrek. It's almost always in his point of view, in third person granted.
I mean, it will always be in his point of view because a dwarf that wants to unalive himself isn't exactly concerned about how about his perception or as to how he sees the world. I mean, if you're a hammer, the rest of the world is a nail, so might as well leave it to the YouTuber to actually tell the story. Makes sense.
But still, so we see all these events happening through his eyes. Over the course of the series, you can see how they develop as comrade-at-arms, and sometimes if you squint, you can almost call them friends. And you also see Felix get the shit kicked out of him. Like, a lot. But beyond the two main ones, there's 4 more characters I'd really like to cover, because I love all of them. I'm gonna go in ascending order of how much I like the characters, but really they're all a great addition to the series. First off is Ulrika Magdova Stragov, who bears the honor of having the single most Slavic name in all of Warhammer outside of the Vestroyan Firstborn characters.
So it's not like wait, what was that anime meme? Alexi about, you know, having the most Russian name ever. But anyways,
Even has her own trilogy of books. A trilogy I highly recommend you don't Google search if you don't want massive spoilers for Gotrek and Felix. In fact, just don't look her up until you get about half.
So she's a recurring character in Gotrek and Felix. She's not one of those that has a limited shelf life.
Halfway through all of the Gotrek and Felix books. Pretend she doesn't exist, except for right now because I need my average watch time to stay up. I also
At the very least, I'm going to read the first book and let's see if the first one will drive me, or at least, you know, make me interested in reading the second one.
couldn't find any artwork of her that wasn't.
What? I read the first book in the 50 Shades franchise. I also read the first book in the what was that one with the vampire and the werewolves thing? Twilight. Alright. I read the first book in the Twilight franchise. Why? Because that's my thing. We do books. At the very least, I don't judge a book by its cover. Alright, that has been the philosophy even before I was undergrad, even I was in grade school, when all I had, when the only form of affordable entertainment was books. Okay?
Either a massive spoiler or a softcore porn, so I hope you enjoy this old model she got a while ago, because that's all you're going to be seeing for the next minute. Anyways, Ulrika is the daughter of a Kislavite minor noble. She's good at horse riding, swordsmanship, or I guess swordswomanship, and is one of the women of the series Felix fell hardest for. She's also one of the women of the series Felix was hardest for. She's on and off between being a main and a side character, and I will say no more to avoid spoiling. Sometimes she disappears.
So, definitely not a character with a limited shelf life. Got it.
Which, fair enough, she wants to be her own protagonist too. She deserves it, I say. Sometimes she's a bit of a bitch, other times she's a wonder to have on the page and add some character that no one else does to the series. At the very least, she's a nice distraction from his usual company of suicidal dwarfs. Good character. Felix is down bad for her. That's all I gotta say on her. Needs more Rule 34. Next up is Max Schreiber, a light wizard who, alongside Gotrek, is the other character who makes regular appearances that's over.
So, definitely not Sean Bean, because this face. First thing that popped to my mind was Sean Bean. Oh yeah, I remember now that other book, Bernard Cornwell, his Sharp franchise or his Sharp series, which had a TV series with Sean Bean, you know, which was technically Sean Bean's first big actually his first big break was the one James Bond, Tomorrow Never Dies, I think. Not Sean Connery. It was still Pierce Brosnan. And anyways, in that particular franchise, Richard Sharp, it's like he sort of loses his fortune at the end of every book, and then by the start of the next book he's got money problems, something to that effect. But you know what? I like my Trailer Park Boys analogy better.
overpowered as balls. At one point he says, I am neither Teclis nor Nagash, and he's right. He's still overpowered as hell though. Apparently light magicians can heal you. Did you know that? Because Max can cure your Black Death right up. Even if it's caused by having tiny demons in your body. Doesn't matter, he'll fix it right up. He can also blast several dozen enemies at once with magical light, send his consciousness away from his body like he's no clipping out of it, and make protective wards that completely immunize people to chaos until their battery runs out. So yeah, he's a pretty strong wizard. He's also introduced around the same time as Ulrika, and he and Felix spend the next couple of books in a dick measuring contest over who gets to be with her. It kinda wavers back and forth between who's winning the battle for the Ulrikussy. As a side note, my father is reading Gotrek and Felix because I lent him the first book, and I'm incredibly excited for when he stumbles across this video and hears his son say the word Ulrikussy. That aside, Max is incredibly wise and smart, and a smartass, but not in the usual Marvel way where he's a quip or comment every other sentence. Every now and then he'll just say something dry and vaguely mocking that usually starts another measuring contest with Felix before a chaos invasion interrupts them. Max's role in the story is oftentimes to justify how the gang can cut through an entire horde of enemies, but also not just one-shot the main bad guy. He takes care of the minions, but it tires him out because magic and Warhammer is like handling unstable nuclear material, so Gotrek and Felix swoop in at the end to save the day. Again though, he's still a badass, make no mistake. He's like the tier of mage right below Teclis and Nagash, which still means that if he was in Total Warhammer, he'd be a legendary lord or hero. Almost nothing can stand up to him, and it's really fun to read the interactions between him and Felix as they waver back and forth between good friends and two parts of a love triangle. Next up is the second to the last one I'd like to mention, Malachi Mackayson. He's a dwarf slayer, which is a running theme with the recurring dwarf characters you might.
The first treasure you buy each round that costs 5 or more gold has its cost reduced by 1 gold. Wait till you see what it does. Okay. So we're now looking into Warcraft version of dwarves where they do the whole mechanical thing, but they have guns and pistols and shit. I'm guessing it's their thing. Guns and stuff. Cannons. I mean, whichever side of the spectrum you land on. Tech or being what's that D&D class again? The one that deals with guns. Artificer class. Alright, that's their thing.
Notice. Unlike most other slayers, though, he tries to fulfill his death oath by creating the most outlandish inventions possible and taking them to battle. What sort of inventions, Pancreas? I'm glad you asked, viewer. He made a repeating crossbow. I believe he invented parachutes, so that's pretty helpful for gyrocopter pilots. Might not sound like the most interesting invention, that last one, but if you try and test a parachute and it doesn't work, you're gonna meet doom pretty damn quickly. Oh, and he built the Hindenburg, and then covered it in armored plating. The one in the books apparently isn't even the first one he built, but he called the previous one something like the Unbreakable or whatever, so I don't think I even need to elaborate on what happened to that one. He's incredibly cheerful, not only for a
so Titanic then.
dwarf, but especially a slayer, and he's a mad genius. I wouldn't say that he's super funny, but it's just so exciting to read when he's on the page. He makes everything just seem like a high fantasy adventure novel, which is a nice breath of fresh air before it goes back to being Warhammer and all grim, dark, and depressing again. At one point he gets blasted by
Alright, so it just dawned on me that I'm definitely gonna have to read the first book because he just mentioned something quite interesting because I was under the impression that this whole thing is going to be a buddy cop comedy. But you know what? And apparently you need this guy. Apparently, according to Pancreas, to him, this guy is more of a breath of fresh air or is the comedic relief because, you know, the rest of the world is just downright depressing. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, yep. Definitely gonna at least read the first book.
Magic and just stands there and takes it like the Senator Armstrong meme. He even says something along the lines of, your magic can't hurt a dwarf, which is somewhat close to both Nanomachine's son and You Can't Hurt Me, Jack, so now I'm going to accuse Metal Gear Rising of ripping off Warhammer Fantasy. On a final note about him, I highly recommend having your phone nearby when you're reading books that he features in, because they gave him a Scottish accent, and it is goddamn illegible. Now, I don't think a Scottish accent is actually that hard to understand verbally. I mean, I understand it, but reading that shit?
Reading that shit is quite different. I think there was this, Chuck Palahniuk! I forgot. He wrote this particular, I forgot the title, he wrote this particular book about a North Korean infiltration agent that infiltrated modern America. And the thing is, he wrote it, from the point of view of that North Korean spy that's supposed to penetrate American modern society. And the problem is the main character, it's from his point of view, spoke with pidgin English or spoke with broken English that I swear that after I finished the whole book, I felt like my grammar dropped about like 20 points or something because he spoke in broken English. Or Pigeon English, I believe that's what it's called. So yeah, it's gonna be a hard read. But thankfully the story isn't the story isn't provided under his point of view, or else it's gonna be a hard time reading the book.
Yeah, good luck, bud. He's the first character in a book I've ever had to stop reading because I had to look up what in the hell anything he was saying meant, and I wouldn't have him any other way. Rock on, Mikaisen. Here's to seeing you as a legendary lord in immortal empires. Finally, the best slayer and best dwarf ever, Snorri Nosebiter. Now, Snorri is an interesting dwarf. Initially, his role is purely comic relief with a smidgen of body horror. All slayers dye their hair red and shape it
There we go. Grimdark body horror.
into a crest. Snorri, on the other hand, shaved his head bald and jammed 3 nails into his skull he painted red. Jesus Christ, dude.
So, yeah, he angroned himself.
Him and Gotrek actually knew each other long before each of them became a slayer, and he's one of the few people that Gotrek counts as one of his friends.
So, long lifespan? Elf-like lifespan?
Even if you won't admit it. He also refers to himself in the third person whenever he speaks, and generally talks like someone who has dropped down the path up to the mountain a few too many times. But he's so relentlessly cheerful and fun, and even in the darkest of hours he can bring a smile to everyone's face. From Felix to Ulrika and Max, and anyone else around them. As much as they might get exasperated by his sheer stupidity, it just...
So they both ended up, these two friends both ended up as penitents. I'm sorry. Oh, coffee. Ow. That hurts. I mean, Jesus Christ, what were these two before they became penitents? I mean, you know what? Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Birds of the same feather. What the hell were they up to? How the hell did they end up being penitents? It's not exactly something... It's not something it's not exactly something that can be considered as common. Like, you literally have to screw up bad, because the worst thing that could happen is like you end up in a penal battalion and that's it. You get to redeem yourself back if there is ever such a thing, but this time you're trying to find redemption through death, through finding unaliving yourself moments, and these two just ended up on the same road, and they were friends before they became penitents. Okay. Good times then. I should really call some people up.
This wouldn't be the same without Snorri around. He also hits like a bus. If Gotrek is Goku, then Snorri is Vegeta. He's never really allowed to win the final big battle, but a lot of the time he looks even cooler than Gotrek and will still be instrumental in victory. When he's not fighting, him and Gotrek like to get into headbutting contests. This is where they get really drunk and headbutt each other until someone passes out. That's probably a good indication of his main role in these books. He brings some comedy to the stories while still being badass enough to keep up with the two leads. His second main role is to make you incredibly depressed whenever we get any amount of time in Snorri's point of view. I mean, it makes his character a lot better for it than if he was just happy, strong idiot, but the first time I was reading a book from Snorri's point of view, my exact reactions were, hell yeah, it's about Snorri now, followed by, I'm gonna go lie down and blankly stare at the ceiling for a few hours now in a span of about 5 seconds.
So like I said, ending up as a penitent is sort of an achievement in itself, that you have to screw up or your sin must be so bad that this is the result. So yeah, it's definitely going to be depressing. I was honestly under the impression that it's going to be a buddy cop comedy, but no, again, grimdark is grimdark.
And I really want to talk about the second to last book in the series because it's got a really good moment between Gotrek and Snorri, but I don't want to spoil it. I also don't want to spend the rest of this video weeping into my microphone, so let's move on past this now, please. Snorri's either going to bring a smile to your face and get a laugh out of you when he shows up, or crush your hearts into tiny pieces. There's no in between. Best dwarf, best slayer, someone please give him a model, put him in Total Warhammer, please for the love of God give me more Snorri Nosebiter, something needs to fill that hole in my heart. And even beyond what you can call the main cast, there's a ton of really cool side characters that are only in one book each. For example, in Elf Slayer, there's this high elf who has this really defining character moment that, without spoiling because it'll ruin the story, even the most diehard elf hater would salute him for what he's doing. And I'm not just saying that as an elf simp, trust me, what this elf does is goddamn heroic. So instead, let's just share a couple of cool stories about what Gotrek and Felix have done, and wait. I forgot about Thanquil. Thanquil is a Skaven Grey Seer who can best be described as living proof that you can fail upwards. He's gonna get his own video, both because I can give him a mini do or don't like Nagash, and because he's just so fun to talk about. But simply, he's the Skaveniest Skaven who ever Skavened, and he features fairly frequently in the early Gotrek and Felix books. On the one hand, he's a hell of a mage who snorts Warpstone on the regular to boost his strength. On the other hand, he's a goddamn moron who sabotages his own plans because he thinks it'll give him more power over the other Skaven. Case in point, there's 3 books in the series about the Skaven trying to take over Nuln. At least I think it's 3, but I read them over the course of like 3 weeks, so it could be 2 or 4, but I think it's 3. And while Thanquil is working with the other Skaven characters in that book, he writes Gotrek and Felix letters pretending to be a human informant about the Skaven. If you ever have a chance, please just read them online. You can find at least one of them on TV Tropes if you just search up Thanquil's letters to Gotrek and Felix. They, of course, immediately figure out that it's clearly a Skaven doing this and are a little bit concerned why one of them is helping, but they figure, fuck it, and help Thanquil ruin the plans of Thanquil's allies. Which will supposedly help Thanquil become more powerful, but in practice he just keeps weakening his own forces. What a silly guy. He shows up more often, and every single time he does, the books...
Alright, so he thinks that by undermining his allies, he becomes stronger? Is that what's happening here? Comments, please. I mean, that's the whole thing, according to one of our old PancreasNoWork videos. Skaven would definitely take over if they didn't spend so much time fighting each other, undermining each other, or trying getting over the whole one-upmanship thing.
Get even better, and about 10 times as funny as they were before. Okay, now I'm going to tell you some anecdotes about Gotrek and Felix. Be warned, this will be the heaviest bit on the spoilers, because I'm just going to be talking about the stories. So if you still want to be spoiler-free, then skip to the next part of the video. Aren't chapters a great feature? Anyways, how about the Tomb Queen that was relentlessly thirsty for Felix? You heard me. Gotrek and Felix end up in Lamy and fight some vampires as part of the greater story. The B-plot is the vampire's point of view and what she's doing, but it also feels kind of like the C-plot of the book is how badly this mummy woman wants Felix's meat. I'm not kidding, there are so many times where she makes some comment along the lines of, if I still had skin, you would be my husband or some shit. She's also such a badass on her own that Gotrek outright says if she wasn't undead, he'd marry the 2 of them and Felix would have no input on the matter. That's high praise from any dwarf about the undead, let alone the fact that Gotrek dislikes damn near everyone whose name isn't Snorri or Felix. Tragically, there's no shipping it because she is again a mummy, but goddamn do I get it. And while I'm leaving you all to figure out if I understand Gotrek's view on the matter or the Tomb Queen's, how about the time...
What makes him get it?
Gotrek and Felix met their body doubles. They went to this dwarf hold that was basically auctioning off their hold's treasure in exchange for help retaking it, since at the time of the novel what they actually controlled of the hold was basically the outside door and a tavern they built around it to attract customers. Very undwarf-like, would certainly get an entry in the book, and Gotrek makes sure to call everyone involved a massive pussy. But there's violence to be had, so Gotrek still goes in, and they meet who else but another dwarf slayer with a rememberer to immortalize his own death. Felix and the other human commiserate over their suicidal companions, and Gotrek is slightly nicer to the slayer because they're pretty much the only group of people on the planet the bastard can relate to. Then they keep suspiciously wandering into death traps over and over and over until they find out that, wait a minute, the other dwarf's rememberer was trying to get his slayer killed to be free of his own oath. Gotrek and Felix were both unfortunate enough to be in the way, and some asshole mercenary was going to pay the rememberer big time to kill him. Considering that it's a short story and not a proper book this takes place in, you can probably guess how this ends up for everyone involved that isn't Gotrek or Felix. And for one last story, and this is a big one, how about how Gotrek ended up in the Mortal Realms? Now this is incredibly spoiler heavy because it's all about the last Gotrek and Felix book, which again I have not finished, but my eternal hatred towards myself means I looked it up like a goddamn clown because I couldn't help myself at first, and now I'm forcing it onto all of you as a way of consoling myself. If nothing else, we both know we made it into Age of Sigmar, so there's only so much in the way of true spoilers to be had, I guess. Anyways though, Gotrek and
So it's either the end of the end times, or like literally about the end of end times. These two like lived in the end of end times, or again elf-like lifespan for dwarves here.
Felix found out that, surprise, the dwarf god Grimnir was grooming Gotrek. No, not like a Discord mod, but to become Grimnir 2.0. And then also, by the way, they need to stop Be'lakor from ascending to godhood if they could, please and thank you. Oh, and also there's one greater demon of each chaos god present, including a bloodthirster that has some personal history with the two. If you remember way back to the start of this rambling video, it's the one Felix threw knockoff Mjolnir at. He remembers that inconvenience they caused him, and he's ready to take revenge. Unfortunately for the demons, Gotrek is able to stop Be'lakor with help from Felix. He does this by slapping the shit out of Be'lakor with the bloodthirster. God, so cool. And then he takes Grimnir's place in holding back the tides of the warp, which, because it's the end times, is naturally changed to getting lost in the warp while chaos overtakes the world anyways. Of course, how did Gotrek survive all of this? Even the gods of the old world died, how did he survive? Have you been missing everything I've said so far? He's Gotrek freaking Garnison. You can't kill Gotrek, so Gotrek started killing demons. And more demons. And then, more demons. He killed demons for so long that eventually he stumbled his way into Age of Sigmar. But you know what the thing about that is? At a certain point, he stopped fighting demons because they just kept leaving him alone. He says they were probably bored of fighting him. Realistically, the Chaos Gods were shitting their pants at the man with the demon-killing axe wandering around their house, murdering everything they sent at him.
Because
and
why
thus do
not?
we get to the end of Gotrek and Felix. For now, anyways. Gotrek figured out that a lot of the Stormcast Eternals in the Mortal Realms were once heroes from the old world, after all. And even if Felix isn't one of them, he's not resting until he finds his best friend. And his axe. As for Gotrek's rules, I thought about doing a do or don't mini thing here, but I don't really have much to say. He's expensive as all hell and slow, but he's almost impossible to kill, and anything that enters melee range with him just isn't coming out. Kite him and fire every single ranged attack you have at him, otherwise you're just gonna lose the match. If you're playing Gotrek, just send him on into the biggest blob of enemies you can find or the biggest, scariest looking monster. Who knows, maybe you'll find the one person that plays AOS that hasn't heard of Gotrek. Then you can enjoy wiping the smug look off your opponent's face when your lone dwarf wipes out their Death Star model. And that is the end.
But I doubt it because people practically begged me for this one.
Of this glorified slideshow on the legendary Gotrek Garrison and Felix Jaeger, the single best Warhammer characters ever written, aside from, of course, their friend Snorri. Tune in next time for...
Yeah, I'm gonna judge that one for myself if they are the best characters ever written. But then again, he didn't say that these are the best, books written in the franchise, so fingers crossed.
I don't know, a video about another Warhammer fantasy character or something. Or a phone company. Thank you, of course, to my wonderful channel members. You are like Gotrek to my Felix, letting me survive another day in the horrid world we live in. Don't think about that analogy too much. If you'd like to support the channel, consider subscribing or becoming a member. Either way, thanks for watching and take care out there.
Alright. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, notification button, you guys. Wait, something's coming up.
No one joke, I'm just gonna tell you all straight up, Gotrek can take on any Primarch as of AOS. Hell,
Probably.
towards the end times, he probably could have done it already, but as of AOS, he for sure can. Like, there's not a shred of doubt in my mind. If Horus and Gotrek walked into a room and fought to the death, the one walking out is gonna be the angry dwarf complaining about how shoddy even the human demigods are.
I don't doubt it. Bye!